What would you do if the person you trusted most was planning your ruin? By the end of this story, you'll see how a single piece of paper burned an entire family to ash. This isn't just a story about my greed. This is a story about my mother's brutal, perfect strategy to use my own ambition to destroy me. By the end, you'll know why I lost more than money, and why I deserved every bit of it. To understand how an empire is defended, you have to understand the players. First, my mother, Eleanor, the architect, the grandmaster, self-made and fiercely disciplined. Her favorite saying, something she'd repeat while tending her garden, was, "An old tree knows the storm is coming long before the wind blows." I thought it was just a quaint proverb. It was her battle strategy. Her frugality wasn't a personality quirk. It was a weapon disguised as deprivation. She arranged her spices not alphabetically, but by color and origin. I saw it as eccentricity. I should have seen it as a mind that organizes chaos. But her silence wasn't peace. It was preparation. Then, my brother David, the loyal soldier, quiet, content, and completely predictable. His loyalty wasn't born of love. It was a strategic alliance I was too arrogant to see. And then there was me, the visionary, the one who understood that $3 million was an arsenal, not a trophy to be polished. I saw her caution as a weakness. That was my first and most critical miscalculation. Because her caution wasn't fear. It was a long game. While David settled for a quiet life, I went into sales. I chased commissions, bonuses, the symbols of success. I built an empire of appearances on a foundation of debt. The lease on the luxury car was coming due. The second mortgage felt like a tightening noose. In my mind, her growing estate wasn't the fruit of her labor. It was a strategic asset being mismanaged, a lifeline being withheld. I remember our last warm Christmas together. The tree lights twinkled, but the air was thick with unspoken rivalry. She unwrapped David's gift, a framed photo of her childhood home he'd tracked down, and her eyes welled up. Then she opened mine, an expensive designer watch, and gave me a cool, polite thank you before setting it aside. Later, I cornered David. "Don't you see she's just sitting on it? It could be working for us." He just looked at me with a quiet pity that infuriated me. "It's her money," he said, "not a corporate asset." Her praise for David was a clear signal. What I didn't know was that her next move would erase me. I thought that holiday was tense. I didn't know it was my last as her son. The catalyst for my attack wasn't a crisis. It was a strategic move on her part. After a minor fall, she announced she was meeting with her lawyer. "David is the executor, of course," she said, looking right at me. It wasn't an insult. It was a declaration of war, a clear signal that the crown was passing to him. My path was clear. If I couldn't inherit the power, I would have to seize it. That night, I conducted opposition research. Power of attorney, contesting a will, inheritance theft penalties. The warnings were for amateurs. What I didn't know was that the man guarding her fortune was about to destroy mine. My strategy was a financial coup, executed in stages. Phase 1, Operation Dutiful Son. I stopped talking about money and started bringing groceries. I framed the power of attorney not as a transfer of power, but as a logistical necessity. "Let me handle the banking, the bills. It's just easier," I told her. The table where we once broke bread had become a battlefield. As I laid the papers in front of her, The smell of her Sunday pot roast, a scent from my childhood, seemed to fill the room and choke me. For a second, I saw a picture on the mantelpiece of her holding my hand as a small boy, and a wave of crushing guilt washed over me. Then rage took its place. She nodded slowly. The scratch of her pen on the paper was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I held the document, the paper still warm from her hand. Victory. I thought I was closing the deal. In reality, I was walking into the slaughterhouse. The power of attorney gave me access, but I was about to learn that my key only opened the front gate. The real treasure was locked in a vault, guarded by a man whose name would seal my fate. When I attempted a major transfer, I was stopped by Mr. Harrison, her financial advisor and, as it turned out, her wartime consigliere. "The bulk of these assets," he informed me, his voice a blade wrapped in velvet, "are held within the Eleanor Vance Irrevocable Trust. Any distribution requires co-approval from the trustee." My blood ran cold. "Who is the trustee?" "Your mother and your brother, David." It was a brilliant defense. She hadn't just protected her assets. She had weaponized my brother against me. A lesser player would have folded, but I decided to go scorched earth. How far would you go to win? Because I was about to cross a line I could never erase. I thought this was the moment I'd win. How wrong I was. If the front door was locked, I would burn a new one. Forgery. My office became a clandestine workshop. I studied her signature for hours, the elegant loops, the firm downstroke. My own hand shook. I remembered being 7 years old at this very table, her hand guiding mine as she taught me how to write my own name, telling me, "A man's name is his bond, so write it with pride." The irony was a bitter acid in my throat. I practiced until her signature flowed from my hand as a perfect, soulless copy. I drafted the fake amendment, naming myself sole beneficiary. The ink dried on the page like a bloodstain. I thought this was the turning point. I didn't realize for what side. The final phase was the cruelest. I began a whisper campaign, seeding the idea that my mother's mind was failing. Every word I spoke to smear her was a knife I twisted into my own future. With forged documents, manufactured evidence, and a fabricated doctor's note, I prepared the package for Harrison. The night before I mailed it, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "Thinking of you. Be true to yourself." My blood ran cold. For a moment, I almost aborted the plan. But greed was a louder voice. I didn't hear the warning in her text. I only heard the echo of my own greed. I mailed the package. Then the waiting began. First came the sleepless nights, my mind a prison of what-ifs, replaying every forged loop of her name. Then came the paranoia. On the second day, I'd jump every time the phone rang. By the third day, I heard a sharp knock at the door that made me cry out, but there was no one there. The lies had built a wall around me, and I was trapped inside with my own ticking clock. The beginning of the end came as a registered letter, a summons. I walked into that boardroom, and the chill of the leather chair against my back was the first sign. The polished mahogany table seemed to stretch for a mile. There, I saw the trap in its final, perfect form. My mother sat at the head of the table, not as a frail victim, but as a commander who had just won the war. A memory flashed. Us at the kitchen table, a chessboard between us, her voice warm but firm. "Always think 3 moves ahead." Now she was destroying me in real time. Beside her, my brother, her enforcer. His face was stone. Harrison orchestrated my execution with surgical precision. The notary, Brenda Smith, does not exist. The stamp is a counterfeit. The doctor's letter is a fabrication. They had dismantled my attack, piece by piece. Then he delivered the kill shot. He slid a single document across the table. The sound was like a blade being unsheathed. Article 12, in terrorem clause, a no contest clause, a legal landmine buried in the trust for years with my name on it. Any beneficiary who attempted to seize control through fraudulent means would inherit nothing. I swallowed, and the sound in the silent room was hollow. My mother, without looking at me, reached out and gently adjusted a small family photo on the table, centering it perfectly. Then she finally spoke, her voice steady. "They think age makes you fragile," she said, looking right through me. "It makes you patient. To lie about my mind failing, that is something a mother can never forgive. I gave you life, and you tried to steal mine." David spoke only once, his voice a cold, quiet dagger. "The money is gone for you, but that's not the worst part. We are gone too." They could have pursued criminal charges. Instead, she offered terms of surrender, a full confession, relinquishing all claims. She didn't want me imprisoned. She wanted me broken. She got her wish. The fallout was a slow-motion collapse. I heard she donated half the estate to a women's scholarship fund. That detail cut deeper than any judgment. I remember standing outside my empty house in the rain as the new owners moved in. I remember seeing my own reflection in a pawnshop window as I sold the expensive watch she'd once given me. I remember seeing the empty chair at the Thanksgiving table in a photo David posted online, a gaping hole where my presence used to be. In the background, I could see the warm glow of family laughter, their silhouettes moving with a joy I was no longer a part of. The house I couldn't afford was lost. I was fired. I declared bankruptcy. I was a ghost, erased not by time, but by a single, perfectly executed move. In the ruin, her strategy is clear. Her trap wasn't just about protecting money. It was a weapon, designed to use my own fatal flaw against me. She knew my ambition would curdle into greed. She built a system I was destined to challenge, and in doing so, I became the architect of my own ruin. The real inheritance wasn't money. It was a lesson, and it cost me everything. You cannot forge loyalty, and you cannot outwit a mother who knows every shadow of your heart. Patience isn't weakness. It's the sharpest blade in the arsenal of age. Watch this next for another jaw-dropping tale of greed, betrayal, and revenge you won't see coming.